Yeah, see, now I got the wicked Boston accent. When I got the sinus stuff, dude, I can start talking like this. It's fire,
Oh,
bro.
yeah, yeah.
Fire. Like, I could just start switching the whole thing up. Be like, yo, what up, everyone, huh? My name is Joe Bragg. Thank you for listening to the Christian Boy Gamers podcast, all right?
Welcome to the Christian Board Gamers podcast, where we focus on Jesus, community, and board games. Let's have some fun.
What is up, everyone? My name is Joe Bragg. I just want to thank you for listening to the Christian Boy Gamers podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my dear brother, Ray. We're excited to chat about Jesus, the Bible, Christian living, board games, and life in general. There's no telling where we might go. Ray, how you doing today?
Joe, I'm very excited to be here. You sound a little different today.
You're excited? You're pumped up?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
crazy. You're excited to be here. That's nuts.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad. Yeah, I sound a little different. I got one of these sinus infections, right? And when I have that, it sort
Ah,
of brings out my Boston accent. Most people
okay.
don't know I'm from Massachusetts. I just don't necessarily sound like that. So when
Ah,
I get the sinus infections, bro, it changes the whole
yeah.
demeanor of my throat.
Well, the crazy thing, Joe, is I
Yeah.
also don't feel the best. So we are about to have some fun. I can't laugh too
Well,
hard.
you don't turn into
I
different accents when you don't
yeah,
feel good.
I don't turn into Bostonian, but man,
Oh, good.
let me tell you, yeah,
Yeah.
I if I laugh too hard, man, I will be
Yeah.
done for the rest of the show coughing. So I'm gonna hold
Good.
my laughter to the end.
Yeah.
All internalized tonight.
Yeah, yeah, and that was a really bad Boston impersonation. Even though I am legitimately from the East Coast. I am thankful that I don't sound that way. A lot of times I pronounce my R's and stuff, although there are certain words I cannot say, but that's all right. It's just fun. It took me a long time to say the word error. I still have to slow it down because I say
Mm.
era, and people be like, "What time period is that?" I'm like, "Look, you made an error," and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, you made a mistake. Okay, you messed up. You made an error." So it took me a little while when I got here, but yeah, as Ray just kind of alluded to, and I even said it in that weird little thing there. Definitely battling some sickness, whatever, just allergies and all this
The crud is
stuff.
here in Michigan during
Yeah.
winter, you know?
So we have no like we might just start sneezing and coughing during this podcast, man. Y'all just gonna have to rock with us. So thank you anyway for doing that. I was actually curious because I was like, bro, we say under the weather all the time, and in my mind, I'm like, we're always under the weather, right? Like
Right.
weather. The last I checked, weather happens above me at all
Yeah, yeah,
times.
yeah.
Therefore, I'm under it. So I wanted to know what it was. Have you ever heard of what this is?
No,
Have you ever
I've
looked it
never
up?
heard the origin of that.
Yeah.
A good thought.
So yeah, somebody probably on this podcast knows it. They're like, all right, like they're listening. They're like, you guys, like, how do you not know this? Well, I'm not that smart, right? But this
Mm,
is what it is. When a sailor, right? Okay, we're going way back here. When a sailor
mm.
became ill or seasick, often because of violent weather conditions, that sailor was sent below the decks to the most stable part of the ship, which was under the weather rail. Bro,
Oh,
so
wow.
the phrase under the weather rail was shortened to the idiom under the weather. So when you're not
Hmm.
feeling well, you go under the weather rail. So you're going to be under the weather. So that fun fact that you didn't think you would learn today on this podcast that you just now heard was that your life is now improved. You're welcome. Awesome. With that, though, let's transition into these sponsors. This has been super disjointed and really fun. I'm having a good time already. So, this episode is sponsored in part by Living Water Gaming. Their mission is to be the one-stop shop for Christian games and gaming accessories. You can visit livingwatergaming.com to learn more. That's livingwatergaming.com. And also, we are sponsored by Refocus Creative. This is resourceful video marketing solutions. Refocus Creative offers high-quality professional video production services for any of your business marketing needs. You can contact them at info@refocuscreative.com. That's info@refocuscreative.com to schedule a free chat and discuss your media needs. Do that. If you're looking for something in media, go reach out to Chris out there. I had a great conversation with him today. He's just an awesome dude. So contact them at info@refocuscreative.com. com. Huge thanks to our sponsors. And in other news, we are still promoting this. We've been promoting this since day one on
Mm,
this podcast. We're super pumped. The Game Changer Board Gaming Retreat, which is April 5th through the 7th at Camp Living Waters in Luther, Michigan. It's going to be a fantastic weekend filled with gaming, praise, worship, prayer, messages. We're super excited. Registration's wide open. People are registering. If you are on the fence, get off of it. Get on that computer.
mm.
Go to camplivingwaters.org/game-changer. That's camplivingwaters.org/game-changer. And register today. Now I've given all the energy I have, so the rest of the show is boom, 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 boom.
Man,
Nah, bro.
that date is coming up soon, April,
It
man. I mean,
is.
like we're halfway through February already. Like April's gonna be here before we know it.
It is actually, and it's cool because people are starting to register more, seeing a little bit more frequency in that.
Sweet,
So get your
sweet.
tickets. I guess, are they tickets? I don't know. They're not
Yeah.
tickets. There's no
Get your
ticket coming to you.
tickets. Get your
Get your
tickets.
tickets, yeah? Huh? Go ahead. Get your registration. Get your hot dog and your registration.
Your
You'll be
hot
all right.
dog. All
Your hot
right.
dog. Yeah. So, hey, with that, we are going to jump right into it. So let's get into it.
You know what time it is? It's game time.
So Ray and I actually had the opportunity, the fantastic opportunity, to go to the National Leadership Conference with Youth for Christ,
Mm,
and had an absolute blast. But
yes.
it would not be. I had a word there. I had a thought. It wouldn't have been as cool had we not been able to figure out how to get a whole bunch of board games down there,
Yes.
which was super dope. So we have a popcorn production part of our ministry. It's called Taste of Heaven. It's this incredible. You can get this online, bro, and y'all want to get
Mm.
this
You,
online. It's this
yes, you
incredible
definitely do.
popcorn that is caramel corn with like a chocolate drizzle. It's some really great stuff. Lots of different flavors, which is really nice. But they
Addictive.
actually brought a van down there to be able to sell some of the popcorn to the other chapters of YFC and all that. And
The
the
van?
general manager, yeah,
Yeah.
Amanda of Taste of Heaven. This is good, man. I'm telling you, I'm super clear headed. I promise. Said,
I can tell. Yeah.
yeah. It's I'm on point. This is the best episode yet. All right, so no, Amanda, the general manager of Taste of Heaven, she like comes to me at the end of a staff meeting. She's like, Joe, I'm taking the van to Florida. And I just looked at her like she had 18 heads. I'm like, congratulations. That's a long drive, you know? And so she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, we can take board games. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And so
Right.
loaded up a
Right.
few game bags, and then she brought them all down to Florida. And it was a blast, man.
Yeah.
The first night was a little bit smaller, but people were like asking like, hey, are you guys going to do this other nights? Because there was people were tired after traveling the first night, but we still were able to throw down, man. Played some Sushi Go. I played Point Salad for the first time, which was actually a lot of fun. You were actually playing Remix Rewired,
Yep.
and you were talking with some people from New Mexico, if I'm
Yep.
correct.
Yeah, yeah, they're New Mexico. And so at the conference, just to give you guys a little glimpse of it, there are about 800 people there, all in this hotel. We're down in Orlando, by Universal, and 800 people from chapters of Youth for Christ all over the country. So I met people from California all the way to New York, all the way down to Puerto Rico, and everywhere in between. And so like we have this game night, and we have this app where everybody's connecting on different levels. And so Joe throws it out there to say, hey, if anybody's interested in getting together after these sessions, let's play some board games. So we have a group of people like in the main lobby. And so I sat down with a couple people that I had not met yet. And yes, they were from New Mexico, and I got to teach them Remix Rewire, which was super fun. It was a fun play, but at the same time, got to fellowship with them. And so it's really easy having conversation, one, because we're all in the same line of ministry. So we can ask, like, what do you do? How is it going? How long you been in? Those kinds of conversations came up. But then I got to hear their awesome testimony of like how they got into the ministry. And it was just amazing. It was a super awesome God story about this guy who was born in Mexico, but then, or not Mexico, in New Mexico, not old Mexico. He was in New Mexico, and he moved up to Indiana, actually didn't even believe in God at all. He was agnostic, and um, this his wife, who had came out of a bad relationship or a bad marriage, mistreated. So the way she explained it, her ex was a guy who called himself a Christian, but who said he believed in God, but didn't act like a Christian. Her now husband was a guy who said he didn't believe in God, but acted more like a Christian should act. And so they're dating. Long story short, this crazy turn of events, and he finds some postcards on the ground of the church. God shows up to him, all this stuff. They end up moving to Mexico, and it was just like the the space created by the board game to sit down and talk to these two and hear their story play out was just, it was amazing, really, really amazing, and great time of fellowship too with other brothers and sisters in Christ and other brothers and sisters in the ministry, and fun time. They had a blast playing the game too, remixed and rewired. Like they came back the next night, ready to play, and they actually played and started teaching some of their friends too. I think they took a copy home with them, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. I don't know if they ended up taking it home, but yeah, they did grab a copy of the game. So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty sure I just sent one to him actually. So
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, yeah. Super fun time.
yeah, which was sweet. And thank you for setting a better context. I like kind of just assumed everyone knew what the National Leadership
Yeah.
Conference
It's
was, as if they
common
were all
knowledge.
there.
It's
Yeah,
common
yeah.
knowledge.
So thank you for, at least one of us has to be thinking. I'm glad it's you this evening and not
Yeah, it's
me.
all good. It's all
But it was
good.
also really cool because like the second night after we had really got some traction on the app and got people like interested, we had a new location and I was teaching apiary to actually a friend of mine that I had done like a YFC camp with, and some other people, and like his wife and some other people were just sitting down, and I was teaching apiary to them, and all of a sudden like I start realizing the room just got really loud. Right. And
Yeah,
I'm like, what is happening? I turned around and there was just a boat ton of people that had started filling tables and
yeah.
started playing games. And so we had this like mini gaming convention break out in the middle of this NLC, which was super dope because
So cool.
that was kind of what I really hoped, where I'm like, man, we're lugging these games all the way down here. It'll be really, really cool, if we were able to, actually have people play them. Like that would be
Right.
fun and worth it. And I'm like, wow, it is like really loud. I turn around, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 10 tables just
Yeah.
filled with people laughing and playing
Having
games.
fun.
And it was super sweet, and it was fun to teach apiary to some new people, and we ended up playing until like way too late in the
Yeah,
morning. But
you
it
got
was
you
a
got
it was a it
you
was
guys are
such
up late. Yeah.
yeah,
Actually
well, yeah,
security was
we're
trying to
up
like
late.
kick
Yeah,
you
yeah.
out.
They tried to, but then they let us stay. And
Yeah.
what do you mean we're up way too late? You running over to the restaurant buying the biggest quesadilla I ever saw in
I
my
was so
life.
hungry. I was so
And you're
hungry.
like, hey, you can have a piece of this. And I'm like, what? Like, so, nah, bro. Yeah,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
was it was a late night. It was a lot. It was a ton of fun, but it was really cool to see a bunch of different people from different chapters connect around board games and just
Yep.
laughing and mixing of chapters and just people getting to know each other and just having a really good time, which I thought was super rad. And on that trip, I actually got to go down and meet one of the admins, Steven from the Christian Board Gamers group in person, and play his game that he's been working on. That I'm not going to butcher the pronunciation, and it's a Japanese name, and I can't ever pronounce it. I asked him how I have him pronounce it like 5 times to me, and I still don't have it. But I do want to say, once I figure out how to pronounce it, it's going to be awesome. But the game was so good, and it was really
Mm.
cool to be able to meet him in person, play a game which was really cool, a Japanese themed game, and we actually got to play it in a Japanese restaurant that was closed.
Oh,
They were opened later, but they let us get tables in there to like play the game because they were part of the hotel. So we had like a really cool themed out
man, that's sweet.
kind of experience, which was really really dope. And then got to break bread and have a meal together later, which was nice. So really really cool. That whole trip was awesome, and it was
It
just neat to be
was.
able to play a bunch of games.
Yeah,
You actually played Azul for the first time,
yeah, I
didn't
was
you?
just gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next night, I had saw my buddies that I I met the previous night, Craig and his wife and one of their friends from New Mexico. And then the next night I sat down with some more people because I was just all about trying to fellowship with as many people I could and meet and talk. And that, like you said, it was like a mini game convention. It was, people were just grabbing games out of the bag and going and setting them up and playing. And man, it was so fun and so cool to see. And again, board games just being the center of fellowship and having a good time and hanging out together. But yeah, so I met a different couple. Gosh, it seems like they were from Indiana somewhere, I think. Could be wrong about that, but they were playing Azul. Yeah, and so hadn't played it. I've been wanting to, and so they taught me how to play. Super fun. Man, I really, really enjoyed that. There's a lot of strategy in that game, and
Yep.
they were trying to like simplify it for me, like, well, it's basically like this. And I was like, this is like a almost take that Scrabble kind of
Sure.
feel where
Yeah.
you're like
Yeah.
trying to, play your points on these certain lines and make these connections. And but I really enjoyed that. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, man. I'll definitely be breaking that out again.
Yeah, yeah, I really like Azul, and again, like it's one of those games that we can play with our oldest. He's 7. We can play with him, which is really nice, and my wife likes it a lot, and it's just a neat
Hmm.
game. Although I always want to eat the pieces, bro. They look like just delicious Starburst, like
Like,
oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
But
They absolutely do. Yeah.
yeah, that's just pudgy guy problems. But either way, yeah, the game's fun, and I love how you mentioned like the take that element because I think that is it's not like out front where it's like, oh, you can do that, but man, you can really mess with people. If I'm looking at
Yeah.
what you need, I can stick you with negative points, all
Well,
that stuff.
so once I finally kind of got the breakdown of the game, we were, I don't know how many rounds in we were, but I realized that where I was in my points, I would need to make up quite a bit of ground to be able to try to win because I'm just competitive, so I don't care if it's a new
Yeah,
game. I'm coming for blood. And so basically I figured out how to start sticking them with extra tiles for them to get negative
yeah,
points so that I could come. And I was like, okay, I see
yeah,
what's going on here. I got it
yeah,
now. Like, and it
yeah.
was it was fun. I actually came close to winning. I did. I lost by like 2 points. But
Wow, that's
but
impressive.
even I had great fellowship with his name James and his wife was Celeste. I had great fellowship with them, talking to them
Yeah,
about just how they got married, where they grew
mm,
up, the ministry,
yeah,
just like life. And we were talking about games too. He was kind of a low key gamer, and which was cool. So yeah, it was a great time down there.
yeah. No, praise God. Yeah, it was a super refreshing conference. The conference itself was super dope, and we just had a
Hmm.
really, really great time as a team. And there were like 32 of us. It was a lot of fun
Yeah,
hanging out with everybody, and the messages were really powerful. And I just left there like more supercharged
yeah,
for what we're doing here in Kalamazoo and all that. So, but yeah, having the games, it was a good call on Amanda's part. And then
absolutely.
even some of the smaller games, a couple other people from our team ended up with, and they were like, "Oh man, this was great at the airport because we were all separated." They were playing games at the airport. It was just a really really fun time. So I'm really glad we brought them. Scott was
Me
talking
too.
about next year and maybe not bringing the van down. I'm like, no, 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 you have to, bro. Like
Yeah,
you can't not. Like I can't take all these games on the plane. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but either way, we do want to jump into our topic, and so we're gonna get into that.
Topic of the week.
When it comes to the board gaming hobby, I think people are at very different levels. And Ray and
Hmm.
I were reflecting on how like he's a little bit more new to the space and he was saying like how much there's so much to learn and
Hmm.
grow in. And this really prompted a conversation with us and also the parallels as it relates to our walk with Christ. I mean, simply put, not everyone's in the same place, and we need to be
Hmm.
mindful of these sorts of things again, both in the board gaming space and the things we're presenting, as well as in our walk with Jesus. And so I think there's a lot to talk here. And
Yeah.
right now we have a tentative title of this episode called "From Milk to Meat," but we'll see. We'll try to work in some board game thing or make it all that. But it was really dope. I mean, Ray, like I want to hear a little bit more of your thoughts because this was something that was really stirring in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So even early on, man, when you invited me to this podcast to do this with you, I was like, I felt a little intimidated just because I'm like, man, like I love board games. It's fun. I'm cool and down to learn to play new ones, but I don't have that experience like, like somebody like yourself or somebody who created a game or, other people. I don't have like I never played D&D or did the role playing or but I played some lightweight games, and so I at times, even during doing the podcast, will find myself like, man, am I qualified, let's say, to be able to sit in this seat and talk about board games, like
Mm,
even as far as like loving Jesus, like, man, I love Jesus. I've been walking with Jesus for some years now, but sometimes I feel like, wow, I don't, am I qualified to talk
mm,
and try to encourage other people because, who am I or where am I at? And it really, when we had Jack Dunbar on here a couple episodes ago, a few weeks ago, and hearing him talk and his heart and how he's so unapologetically him in his space and creating games and who you are to be and stuff, it just kind of brought into my mind of like, you know what? Just be comfortable with who you are. Be comfortable with
yeah,
who God made you. Be comfortable where you're at. And there's a level of, I believe, encouragement in that we could give to people. And I was, that's why when I came in and was talking to you about it. And yeah, just being new to the space, something working through and trying to understand that like I'm not a board game designer. I haven't created a game.
right,
I love games. I haven't played some of the harder games or have the years of experience or have the game collection as some other people, but that doesn't disqualify me from
right.
playing games, talking about games, interacting, learning more.
Yeah.
Actually, it put me in a position to have more of a drive to have more of a learning mindset, to learn more about games, to learn more about how they function, how they play, how to create them and design them, and learn more versus feeling like less than or I'm not worthy to be able to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. Thank you for a little bit of your vulnerability there and kind of open up. I knew when I asked you about the podcast, I was taking a shot because I was like, hey, like you've lit up around games. It's been really fun, but you and I connect, you know what I mean? We just have a good
Yeah.
chemistry and just, your personality. I was like, bro, if I'm doing this podcast, like I want to do it with Ray. And
Yeah.
so when you
Appreciate
said
that.
yes, I was like, sweet, that's cool because you really did have to step out because, you're like, man, I'm relatively newer to it, which I think adds a dope perspective because not like where the hope is that somebody listening to this podcast, maybe they're not the biggest gamer in the world, but they just really like games and they love Jesus and they're just listening and it's like, yeah, we're not I myself, man, I don't sit in this seat of having it all figured out either. Right? Sometimes
Uh-huh.
people be
Uh-huh.
talking about games and I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're in the same hobby, but I don't know what you're saying, right? Like I have no idea. And again, I'm learning and growing and all that. And I had that opportunity to be on like the Board Game Design Lab podcast. I was ready to throw up, man. I'm sorry not to get too graphic, but I was ready to vomit because I'm like, who am I? Right?
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to sit on this, but yeah, Gabe said, yeah, let's have you on. And I was able to talk. And what God's done with that podcast has been mind numbing to me. Like, I just even had a conversation the other day with somebody. They're like, hey, will you give me some time, and just to connect? I have some questions. They're like, I listen to your podcast. This is weeks later, and I'm still talking with people. And it's just been such an encouragement and a really awesome thing to watch God do it. And I think sometimes we just got to step into those spaces and be like, all
Right.
right, look, I'm sure there's somebody who's way more qualified than I am, but I want to be obedient and I want to trust what God's doing, and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so much to it. But I know we kind of talked a little bit offline, but even thinking about where people are in different spaces in the game thing, that informs my decision as far as what game I'm bringing to the table, right? Like you're more
Mm.
apt to try things. That's your personality. You're like,
Hmm.
whatever, throw the heaviest game in front of me and we're going to try to figure that out.
Right.
That is not always the case and can often be super intimidating for people to the point where it might turn them off from the hobby because they're like, I didn't feel smart enough or I didn't feel good enough and I didn't understand it because it was just so heavy or complex. And so
Yeah.
I think that matters in this space that people are in different places. I have this game
I agree.
Anachrony, which I love. Most people would look at that game and be like, yeah, I'm not. I'm not playing that. There's so many moving pieces, and there are, and
Hmm.
there's a lot to it, but it's not for everyone, for starters. And I wouldn't do that to a new gamer. Like, I'm like, hey, what
Right.
games have you played? They're like, Uno, awesome. Here's Anachrony. They'd be
Right.
like, I'm
Yeah.
out. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, time travel in a board game, time paradox. I'm not doing this.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think it's a really good thing for us to be aware of and just have that conversation. Like, what sort of games do you like? What do you play?
Hmm.
And if they say Uno, you'd be like, oh, cool. Have you ever heard of like Exploding Kittens or Unstable Unicorns or, Here to Slay? Something a little bit more, smaller, lighter that can just start to work things in. Like, oh, cool. If you like this, now let's try something else. And
Yeah.
I think that is a really wise thing in the gaming hobby for us to be aware of, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because also too, it makes me think of if you get somebody in and let's say they do jump into a harder game, maybe a little uncomfortable, and like you were saying, they become turned off from even trying games, especially if they get in a spot where um they lost because they didn't understand what's going on. Like if you don't get any
Right,
points, it's you got to be in the game to have fun. I mean, we play games to have fun, to socialize, all those things, but like you're having fun when you're competing, when you're in it, when you're getting it, grabbing a hold of it, and you can understand it. You can add some points up, or at least at the end say like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what, it was fun because I got some points. I didn't get destroyed, or whatever the goal was. I actually worked towards that goal versus just like the whole time everybody else was laughing, having a good time, and you're lost.
right. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that is super wise. Yeah, because we want people to have fun,
yeah.
engage, and come back and be like, you know what? Yeah, I didn't win, but I had a great time fellowshipping. I understood what was
Right.
going on. Yeah, I'll be back to the next game night that you have, instead of like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think this is for me. Um,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think also with that and looking at that, like you said, the same parallels as far as with our walk with Christ and where we are, looking at that in the same sense for people when we're trying to introduce them to Christ or if they're early on in their walks. You said something offline right before we got on there about like trying to give people too much and they don't understand and it's overwhelming
Yeah.
information that kind of turns them off. I think in the same sense you can turn people off on their walk in the spirit um, by the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think that there is such a balance in it because you want to call people into deeper truth. You want to call people into growth, but simultaneously you have to do that and meet them where they're at, right? Like, there's just
Yeah.
certain things. Like, I kind of jokingly say this. I know you've heard me say it, but I joke around about it sometimes where I'll be like, "Oh, that's Christianity 401," right? Like
Yeah.
this is next level conversation, and that's not
Right.
to. Again, it's a joke. It's not to sound elitist. It's just there are certain things like certain topics that you're going to get into that are more after you've been following Christ for a while and you're trying to understand more like the depths of spiritual warfare and how to war and like what real discipleship looks like. Like these things are going to
Hmm.
start to happen and grow. But when I start saying eschatology, someone's like, "Esca what? God bless you." You know what I mean? Like they think you sneezed, or like how to have these deeper, rich conversations.
Yeah.
It's incremental. It's like, okay, you might you might start with Uno, but now we're gonna play this game, and then we're going to move up, and now you're okay, cool, you're playing villainous, now you're playing some of these other things, and next thing you know, now we're having these bigger things at the table because you've grown into the hobby in the same way that you've grown in Christ.
Yeah.
Or when I'm talking with a non-believer, I mean, what do I look like walking up to them and be like, oh, let's talk about eschatological things? They'd be like, who would have what now? What are you talking about? Like, that's not important, right? What's important right now is the gospel, is the good
Right.
news of Jesus, and me meeting you exactly where you're at because that's where someone met me. They met me where
Yeah.
I was at, and they walked
Amen.
with me. and they challenged me, but they walked with me, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so, I just think that there's so much to this, and being mindful of where people are at in their
Mm.
walk. And again, this doesn't mean don't encourage them to grow and dig deeper. You should. And there might be conversations where I'm like, wow, that I just gave them maybe a little bit too much, but then you just watch them chew on it, and that's okay,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That's like you sitting down at a heavy game being like, I'm probably not going to do super well, but I'm going to chew on it. I'm going to learn it. So the next time I come back at
So the
it, right?
next time, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think that that is a thing to be mindful of in general. And it helps things relationally, because what I don't want to do is have another brother or sister in Christ not want to talk to me because I've gone too far over their head and they feel stupid. And then they're
Yeah.
like, I can't even talk to that guy because everything he's saying, it doesn't like,
Yeah.
man, I just don't feel like I'm on that level, right? And it's just more of a how do I get down to people's level, or be challenged to go up to people who are far higher than I am. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds so weird because I'm not trying to like tear this out, because I don't think it's like that. But there are people that I look to that have been following Christ for a long time, that are great, studiers of the word, that I respect, that I'm going to ask questions of, like, hey, I've been studying this. Where are you at with that? Can we
Hmm.
talk about it? And expect them to challenge me because they've been doing this for a long time, and they're growing, right? Like, and developing as Christ followers, right? They're getting closer to Jesus, and in turn, I'm seeing that and wanting to get closer to Jesus, and all of
Right.
that. But I'll
Exactly.
tell
Yep.
people, I'll say it as a joke again. I'll be like, yo, talk to me like I'm Joe. And they'd be like, "What?" Like, it's just another word of saying, like, "Hey, talk to me like I'm dumb, bro. Like, break it down into the simplest form so that I can actually understand what you're saying." Because I've listened to pastors before, and I'm like, bro, I don't even know what language that was, or like what
Right.
you're talking about, because my brain doesn't work that way.
Yep. Yep.
And I've heard this said even with non-believers, where I've had people that have come, like when I would preach at a church, they'd be like, "Wow, like you preach in a much more simple form." I've heard other people, and I'm like, and this is not a comparison, it's just a note. But I work with youth, so I've learned over the years how to take complex like things and not simplify them to the point of watering them down, but making them understandable and
Yeah.
digestible and processable. And that's
Yep.
just from years of working with teens. But that has helped me so much in my conversations with non believers and with newer believers as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And even being somebody on the other side of that, as a person who looks and says, man, I'm not at that level. Again, using it as an encouragement to grow rather than feeling like you're doing something wrong or you're missing the mark or you're not where you're supposed to be. Because the truth is, yeah, we're all at different stages at different times. And especially as the body, as it says in the Bible that we are all different parts of the body. If we were not, then if we're all eyes, where would the hearing come from? And so likewise, like we have to be okay with who we are. And I think that was a big thought of in this episode of being okay where you are and being okay, like you just said, to be challenged to be better.
Yeah,
It's okay that nobody has to be perfect. Nobody is expecting you
right.
to be at level 400 Christian.
Yeah,
Joe, when I first got into the ministry, and it was a bit of a struggle because I had been doing corporate world for 10 years. And then, I come volunteer at this amazing youth center for this amazing ministry called Youth for Christ. And I'm like, yep, I love this. This is what God has put in me. I want to be here. And so after coming on staff, it was very hard. And I just felt like, and even I felt if you would have asked me prior to me coming to the ministry how my relationship was and how I felt about stuff with Jesus and teaching people, I would have said very good, like very good. I have no problem. I'm feel very good about where I'm at in my faith and being able to explain to people and give that as a gift to other people. Well, going after working in the ministry for a while, you had a conversation with me. We had breakfast together.
yeah,
And I think that you could see that it was hard for me. Like, it was just a hard transition going into ministry. And you said something in that it gave me a bunch of great wisdom. But after eating and talking about it and telling you some of my struggles, you were like, hey, how long have you been doing this, man? You're like you basically think about it in terms of like being a baby. As a baby, you don't just get up and start making your own breakfast and running around and doing all this
Yeah,
stuff. No, you have to learn how to walk. You
yeah,
have to crawl first before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run. Somebody else has to take care of you. So, in the sense of thinking about one, how long have you been a Christian? Like you're in your teen years, okay?
yeah,
How long have you been in the ministry? Man, you're a baby in this. Like, it's not going to be amazing right out the gate. You have to grow and learn. And that was pivotal for me to
mm,
change my mindset because I felt like I'm an adult. I should be able to grasp this and master this. But having the view of like, oh, I'm new to this. This is something new to me and I'm learning and growing.
yeah,
I'm not going to be perfect was instrumental. It was huge for me. And I think the same way we need to be okay with that in each of our lives, especially when we're talking about where we are with Christ or the gospel or things that may be new to us, just putting into perspective the reality of where we truly are at. I mean, if you've only been walking with Christ for 5 years and you're talking to somebody who's been a Christian for 25 and been in the ministry and preaching and stuff, and they start saying some stuff, you're like, wait, I didn't know. Oh man, I'm failing. It's like, no, it's not a pass fail. It's an opportunity to
right,
learn and grow, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and praise God for that moment. I actually was thinking about that breakfast the other day as I was going through my expense sheets. That was actually about a year ago. It was in January of
Yeah.
2023, so that was cool.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that Jesus says you must be born again to enter into the kingdom of God.
Mm,
And last I checked, when you're born in infancy. So when I come to Christ, I have a limited understanding, right? I'm born again. I am now in an infinitesimal state, right? Like, bam, wow, now I have to learn this whole new way of life, a way of
hmm
life that was contrary to the way I lived previously. And I think that's a really important thing to kind of keep into perspective. It's like, it's this process of sanctification. Like, we're sanctified, but we're also being sanctified, right? Like, we're in
Yep.
the process of this sanctification that's going on, and that God is molding us and shaping us and growing us, and there should come a point in your walk where you should go from that milk to that meat. Like Peter
Right.
calls us out, like, y'all should be on the meat, man. But
Yep.
okay, we're going to focus on these rudimentary milk things, right? Again, Peter acknowledging what I call the 101, 201, 301, 401, again, jokingly, but it's the same kind of idea where Peter's challenging them to be like, you should be past this.
Yep.
And he's challenging them, he's exhorting them because he's walked with them and you know what I mean? And he's like, y'all, like, I mean, come on now. You've been doing this for a bit. Like, and so I think that, like you said, it's not like a pass fail, it's a growth thing. Like Paul says to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, to work it out, right? Like, I mean, I was talking to someone the other day about like push-ups. When I first started doing push-ups, I could barely do 20, right? I had some
Mm,
shoulder issues. I could barely do 20. I got to the point where I was doing 100 a day. But it
yeah.
started with literally being like, I'm going to do 14 today because that's what I can do.
Yep.
And now tomorrow I'm going to shoot for 15. And then I got to the 20. Then the 20 turned to 40. And then the 40, 60, 80, 100, right? And then you're
Yep.
like, man, I'm cranking out 100 push-ups a day consistently, right? And I did that for like a year and then was like, oh my gosh, I shredded myself. No. No, what happened is I just fell out of the rhythm, right? But it's like one of those things where I started small and then grew and
Yeah.
was there and would just kind of push myself to grow. And I think that we have to keep that stuff into perspective. And it's not that the 5-year Christian can't have great insight and wisdom. I think they can. I learn a
Mm,
lot from new believers because
yep.
they're seeing things again with fresh eyes. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
that I would remember that truth, right?
Yeah.
The basic, just saved by grace, like, bro, like break it down to the basics of the gospel and be like, yo, like, man, I remember that and I want to live in that place. Right?
Yeah.
Like I think a lot about my coming to Christ and I'm like, yo, like was just lit up and on fire. And it's like, Lord, I want that every day.
Yep.
I don't want to
Yep.
miss that, right? I don't
Yep.
want to miss the simplicity of the gospel, even within its complexities. Like I don't want to miss what Christ did. And so it's like I tell people I need Jesus every second, every nanosecond of the day, right? Like it's
Amen.
just I want to have that focus. And then again, that's something I see in new believers, right? Because they're just
Yep.
fired up, bro. And it's
Fired
like,
up.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like that challenges me to be like, look, bro, like I need to just be there and
Yep.
just have that same fervor. And so again, I don't, I think you can learn from the 1 year Christian just as much as you can learn from the dude who's, or the gal who's been following Jesus for 45, 50 years, right? Like,
Absolutely.
and that's the beauty of it. But also just being aware and mindful and having those conversations and kind of feeling out where people are, because some people are just wired different, man. Like you could hit that guy that just started following Christ a month ago, but he's just like a theological brainiac, and you're like, hey, dang, that dude's wired different, right? Like he
Yeah,
just got
right.
unlocked stuff, right? And so again, I think that that's all just really important. And again, bringing it back into the board game space, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like think about it. I love this because I'm gonna run this parallel. When you started like playing like games, like you lit up. Like you
Yeah.
caught like fire. You were like, "Oh my gosh, this stuff is so much fun!" Like, and you started getting excited. Well, what else can we play? What's the next thing? How do we do this? What are we going to do next? And wanting to like learn more and grow, right? Again, running an interesting parallel because obviously board games and the gospel are not even on the same plane,
Right.
let alone. But it's like, but you got excited about it, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
that excites me because I'm like, oh man, that's dope. Like Ray's actually pretty fired up about this. Like, hey Ray, you should check out this game. I think you might like it, right? And I don't even know if you'd be like, yeah, I'd like it. You're just like, I'm gonna try whatever. Like, so let's play whatever. But again, like there's that excitement, and that's what I would love to see more and more out of the hobby. And I think you can, but it's about being mindful. Again, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
sit here and dump this huge heavy game unless that's what someone asks for,
Mm-hmm.
out the gate, because it's not necessarily what they want or what they need or what, makes sense. It might be my favorite game, but what do I look like bringing it out and being like, boom, because I want you to be excited.
Yeah,
I want you to play something and be like, wow, that, like you said earlier, was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it because that's how the hobby really takes root. Because then you go and tell your friends, and then your friends
exactly.
start playing with you, and it's a board game evangelism, right? Like I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna tell people like, yo, you got to play this game. It's rad. I think you'll really like it. But how many times at the center does a kid walk by a game we might set up and be like, oh, that looks too complicated?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, here's what I know, and here's what you know. It's not for them if they would just sit down and play it, but it gives the appearance of this is too complicated, so they don't even sit down,
Yep.
right? So it's like, how do we shift that? And so that's where, and again, we don't bring a lot of complicated games, but even some games that I would consider and you might consider pretty simple to look really complicated to them. So let's break it down.
Yeah.
This is why like the remixed rewired type games really pop off at the center, because it's just a very simplistic game. But we also then challenge them in some spaces. I played some games with those kids that, I think Splendor, even as we talked about in a previous episode, like it's a pretty simple basic game, but for them it's a little bit more like this ain't Monopoly. But
Right.
once they catch it, it's like, oh, this is really fun because they understand it. And so it's just, how do I get kids to the table to play these games? And I know it's not by me setting out all of my super mega heavy games. It's just not gonna,
Yeah.
there's maybe one kid in the center that would be like, yeah, I'll take a shot at it. And he doesn't
Yeah.
really even attend anymore. So I think it's like that matters,
It
right?
does.
Because
It
again, I
does.
want you to enjoy it. I want you to see what this is and what this can be. But then along the way, you know, I might introduce you into something a little bit heavier. Like even just watching them figure out, oh my gosh, there's strategy in exploding kittens, and watching it go off like, oh, I can put this exploding
Uh,
kitten here so it gets you.
right.
Oh, got it, and
Yep.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's dope. But now they're having fun because they realize, oh, I have this agency. I have this way that I can start to manipulate the deck and really just jack with people. And I don't know, man. There's something special about that to me, and
Yeah.
just meeting
Yeah.
them where they're at.
Yeah. I totally agree with that, man. Yeah. Even just thinking about you saying trying to lay out a larger game and get the kids involved, I think that the initial allure of seeing a big game like Anachrony or let's say like Wonderland's War or something like that, it would generate some interest that they come by and say like, what is that? But then you say, oh, here, let me start explaining it to you. And there's so many moving
Yeah.
pieces, like you would lose them in 10 seconds. They'd be like, oh, yeah, that's
Mhm.
too much. You know what I mean? It's
Right. Yep.
like Splinter's easy enough to where it's like you can play and explain at the same time and kind of
Yep.
captivate them and engage and learn as you go, which is really good. Um, you were speaking about older Christians learning from younger Christians with the fresh eyes, and I love that. And I was thinking about that in terms of board games. I almost drew out like a play testing for me. Somebody
Mm,
who is like creating a game and has this vision and has this knowledge and says like, "Hey, come in here. Will you check this game out with me?" And bringing fresh eyes on it and a fresh
yeah.
perspective to say like, "Man, this could actually be better if you did this or switch that up," or "I really like this about this." Had you thought about adding that? It's like again, different parts of the body coming together to
Yep.
function together how it's supposed to make the whole part. And I think that that's great, a great thought of remembering to see that younger, newer Christian or earlier in the faith and take that zeal that they have and remind us that like, man, as we're deciphering through the Bible and becoming theologist and trying to learn these deeper things that there is a beauty in the
Theologist. That's awesome. I love
yeah
that.
theologist. I just made that up,
Theologist.
coined
That's
it later
good.
right now. Yeah. That's the study of theology, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I'm a meteorologist. Well, I'm a theologist. Sorry, don't mind me, man. Bro, oh, that was good. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, don't
But
cough. We're gonna lose you. We're
I
gonna
know
lose
it's
you.
it's it's a wrap, man. It's a wrap. But yeah, no, I just think that there's something beautiful in that, man, and everybody just being cool where you're at, even in the board game space and as creators, like I said, I really was listening to the conversation that we had with Jack and him and putting the game out, and as we were talking about, some of the commentary on Board Game Geek and some of the negative stuff, you just kind of take it and you're like, okay, well, hey, that's fine, but this is where I'm at. This is what the game is. This is who I am in my game. And I'm rolling with it and being comfortable with who you are and not letting somebody else dictate what you should or shouldn't be. And I think that that's a word that we can even use as far as Christians in the workplace or in the world, being comfortable with who you are and not letting somebody else try to dictate what you should be or conform to that. I mean, the Bible tells us not to be conformed to this world, so let's walk that out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that that's, transformative. And again, it's like, you bring up the point where it's like in talking with Jack and listening and learning, it's like we all need to be teachable, right?
Mm,
And be in a humble state where I'm willing to receive information from other people and process it. And some of that information might not be relevant and some of it might, but that might be a topic for a completely different day.
yeah, yeah.
No, I'm big on it, man, because like I think that it's so important for us to, the scripture says iron sharpens iron, right?
Hmm.
So one person sharpens another. And being teachable is a really, really important piece because like I'm not right about everything as much as
Mm-hmm.
I want to be. And like you said, those fresh eyes sometimes can help you see it.
Yeah.
And I love the playtesting analogy because there are many a times where I brought people into victory while we were playtesting, and they would be like, "Hey, what about this?" And I'd be like, "Whoa, yeah, that's dope. Didn't even consider that because I had
Mm,
looked at the game 500 times. You're looking at it for the first time, and you're like, hey, if you did this, that might actually be really cool." And I'm like, wow, now I could have been arrogant and be like, who are you to tell
right.
me that that's no, and I think we can do that in our walk sometimes, man. Like, I
Yeah.
jokingly
Yep.
tell you, like, I'll say, like, hey, don't let the sideways hat fool you, bro. Like, I'm a theologist. No, but again, I think it's like we can assume or come with arrogance and not even hear the other person's point because we're like, nope, I'm not listening to that. I'm not having it. I see this a lot. It's funny. I tell some of the people, like, tell people some of the conversations I'm having, and people are like, "Who do you talk to? Like, who are your friends?" And I'm like, look, but I'm not afraid to step into spaces and have conversations. And one of the things that I'm noting or seeing is like people get kind of like they're rooted in their way, and it's like I'm not going. I've heard this. You won't change my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cool because I'm not the mind changer. That's Christ. But
Right.
that doesn't mean we can't have a conversation that both of us learn and grow from, right?
Yeah,
And like, it's like we
exactly.
should be having that conversation. Again, a lot of this surrounding, eschatology, a lot of this surrounding, you know, again, just discipleship, church function, all of this stuff. Like, there's so many different conversations that are happening right now
Yeah.
and being teachable. and meeting people where they're at, and being okay with me not having all the things figured out, and learning and growing as I go as well. So yeah, I think it's super exciting. I do love this idea of, like you said, you were kind of vulnerable, and in the beginning of this, you're like, I don't know that I'm qualified. And here's what I love is that quite Christ is the qualifier, right? Like he
Mm,
qualifies us, and he calls, and as he's calling, he's qualifying. And so again, I think for us, it's step into obedience, bro. Like again, I've never designed anything prior to Victory as far as like game design. And I'm like, who am I? Again, same kind of thing. And yet watched God do so much with just being obedient. Like
mm,
it's just mind numbing to me where I'm like, how is this happening? Not
yeah.
just with Victory, but this podcast and then the groups growing, all this other stuff. And I'm just like, all it was just stepping out in obedience and being like, Lord, I trust you. I am not qualified. There's probably a billion other people that could do this way better, and that's okay. But yeah, God said, yeah, but I got you doing it, right? Like, and now this is so go do it. Like, oh,
Yep.
all right,
Yep. Yep.
and trusting him with that, and moving in that, and just saying, okay, Lord, I trust you, even though I don't have it all figured out, even though there are people that are probably better at this than I am. All these what ifs that can go on in your head, blah 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 blah. The bottom line is it's about walking in that obedience to Christ and what he's called us to. And so yeah, I mean, if you're listening and you're like, cool, that was a whole bunch of rambling and banter, you guys must be on the NyQuils, no. Um, I'm more on like the all natural thing. I'm a little bit of a hippie in that regard. I actually
Yeah.
literally, before getting on this podcast, took a big old spoonful of fermented honey with garlic, and then
Man.
literally ate the garlic. And
Yeah.
yeah, I got it like that. I ate that
Yeah.
garlic, bro. So you don't talk to me for the next 3 days because it'd be knocking your breath
You
out.
know, it's crazy because Kim's like, she's like, I think it's good. I was like, how do you think this is good? It's not good. I don't care that it's honey that's been soaking in garlic for the last year. I don't like it. I don't like it. But
I,
if you tell
I'm
me
not
it's
gonna
gonna make me
lie.
better,
Yeah,
you
I
like it?
actually no, it's not even that I like it. Okay, that's not the word I would use. This is hey
Oh.
bonus content for y'all. It's not like it is not a word I would use,
Okay, okay.
but I chewed on the garlic today. Like Stephanie was like, if you really want that burst, like eat one of these
Yeah,
garlic things. I said, what I look like eating garlic that's been sitting in this jar? It's all okay. I'm
yeah.
gonna do it, and I just was like, whew, I'm gonna do it.
Uh-huh.
Threw that
Uh-huh.
garlic in my mouth with the honey, and bro, honestly, the garlic didn't really even like have a taste. Like it didn't. It's all different because it's in the
Yeah,
honey and stuff. Like,
it is way more
but
muted. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, super muted. And I was expecting this pungent thing, and I'm like, it really wasn't. Because I have done the honey before, but she's like, eat
Yeah.
one of them garlics, like it'll. Like, and I was like, huh? She's like, well, your middle kid did it, so you can do it too. And I'm like, all right, fine. If he can do it, I can do it. And yeah, it really wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm much more into the supplements and all that stuff. So we can't even blame if you sit there and listen and you're like, this podcast was not good on this episode. A, you got way too high of standards and you got to bring those down a little bit. And but also B, I can't even blame like Medhead. Like I'm
Yeah.
not in
Yeah,
that space. But either way, somebody enjoyed it, and you might not be that somebody, but
that's
somebody
right.
did. But the rest of it is you can sit there and be like, you know what? Hey, you guys are consistent because here is a milestone that we just hit. There are statistics that say that most podcasts don't make it past episode 8. So we're at episode 8. Like you're listening to episode
Woo!
8 right now.
Let's
So the
go.
very next time we record, we're already heading in favorable statistic territory,
Oh man, I love it. I
which is
love it.
which is super exciting. It feels like we've been doing this for much longer than 8
Yeah, I
episodes.
feel I feel the wind at my back, Joe, and I feel like we're just going, man. I feel like we're
Which is
like
weird because you're inside. You feel like there might be a draft. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but
oh,
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
but no, it does. It's funny. So my nephew is actually staying with us, and I was saying like, hey man, if you come home, just make sure you don't walk down to the basement till I'm done recording. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you're doing this podcast. And he was like, when did you start that? And I was like, well, it's been a few months. And I was just thinking, I was like, wow, it's been a few months, but it feels like a lot longer. It feels like
yeah,
this is just like we just always have done this. I mean, from the beginning of
right.
time. Like, yeah. It was like there was Adam,
Anytime
the flood, and then us. I
this
feel like that
podcast.
the
Yeah,
podcast.
hopefully you got theological nuggets from the theologist earlier in the show, and that is not one of them. That is not a
No,
theologist drop
no,
right there.
no,
No,
man,
yeah,
no.
no, it does. And again, it's which is good. I think you kind of want that because it's better than being like, what are we doing and all this kind of stuff. It's still a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
it
And,
is
and
fun.
so as we come to the close of our episode 8 here, which is really exciting, I do want to know, this is going to be a shameless self promotion, but I guess like I could do the whole thing. Well, this is our podcast, so if I want to do that, I totally could.
Yeah,
Uh,
you should.
right now, for a little while here, selling Meek Heroes Victory at 24.99, which is originally
Oof,
39.99. So get it for $25 plus tax and
oof.
shipping at meekheroes.com. You should do that because you should do that. It's just been fun and neat watching people continue to play it, enjoy it. Saw someone posted in the group not too long ago with like their kids and they're all playing Victory, and he's like, "Oh, this happens commonly in our house." I'm like, "Wow, it's an amazing thing." And actually excited.
Fun.
I don't know if it'll be out by the time our podcast drops, but the Chasing Meeples podcast, they're actually going to mention it on their podcast. They recently played it and really enjoyed it, which was a huge praise and just exciting. I'm excited to hear what they have to say, so that'll be really
Sweet,
fun. But
sweet.
so check them out, Chasing Meeples. They're also in the group, Chris and Angie, which is cool, and recently got baptized, which is awesome. Praise
Oh,
God for
praise
that.
God.
Celebrating that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome,
super dope.
awesome.
But yeah, go to meekheroes.com and you can just click on Victory and all that. There's also some really exciting announcements I've got to keep a little bit tight on because we're going to announce all this kind of stuff. So really, really excited. But get your copy of Victory. Get the OG
Yes,
copy at $24.99 at
yes,
meekheroes.com. And again, I also want to remind you, register for that retreat. It's going to be super fun. We're going to have a
yes.
blast. I'm a little bummed because maybe I shouldn't tell this until people like get there, but Ray
Yeah.
has a different family opportunity to go on a cruise, which is sweet, which
Yeah.
is sweet. So I'm not mad at him. I'm sad at him. I'm sad at
Yeah.
him, but I'm not mad at him.
I'm sad I won't be there as well. It's just crazy how whenever you try to plan stuff like dates coincide. I mean, you have
Yeah,
365 days to do stuff and somehow everything happens on the same 4 days of the year. And so,
yeah,
yeah, I'm very sad I will not be there, to be able to meet all the people who come, but Lord willing, this is not a one and done thing. This is going to be
oh
a
yeah,
recurring event that we will have. There will be more events, and I will attend those and be there and love to fellowship with everybody that I possibly
yeah.
can because that's what I love doing.
Yeah, and I only wanted to bring it up because if somebody was like, "Man, I can't wait to meet Ray and tell him how
Yeah.
excited I am to meet him," and then you weren't there, like I want to temper that now.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
that's
but
probably better to get ahead of that. Yeah. I will be
yeah,
taking a couple games on the ship though, so don't worry, I'll still be playing some
yeah.
board games. So,
Yes,
yeah,
no
yeah,
doubt. That's
yeah,
what's up.
yeah.
Praise God for that. That'll be fun. Yeah, it's still going to be a great time. So again, go to camplivingwaters.org/game-changer and register. That's camplivingwaters.org/game-changer. That's a fun URL to say. I thoroughly enjoy it. But it's been fun. I mean, again, feeling a little under the weather, rail, but but still, you know, just wanted to get on here and be consistent. So we hope, I'm going to speak for Ray here, that you found some value in this episode.
Yes,
Um, again, it's just fun to get on here and yuck
it
it up
is.
and all
It
that
is.
jazz. Now, you guys can't see this, but right now on Ray's screen, it says, Sir coughs a lot. And I almost broke into laughter earlier in the episode when I saw it on there. And, because I didn't see it initially, and then I looked down. Well, he's in the middle of this like deep monologue, and I started to like laugh, and I hit my little mute button. But
Oh man.
it does say Sir Cough a lot. I'm over here snur. I'm Snur Sniffles. I'm Sir Sniffles, and he's Sir
Yeah,
Cough a lot. So it's good.
yeah.
But thank you for taking the time. Again, you
Yes.
should
Thank
check
you.
us
Thank
up
you.
on all of our socials. It's just at Christian Board Gamers on Instagram, Facebook. Again, use the Facebook group, not the page. The group is up over 600 members, which is exciting. We're getting
Nice.
close to another giveaway. Thanks
Nice.
to Steve. Yeah, thanks to Steve from Geeky Guys for God. They've put up a copy of The Unseen from Pure Crimson Games and really, really pumped. So when we hit 700 members, we'll do a giveaway. There's no special requirements. It's just be a part of the group, which is cool. And I have a spreadsheet and I do a random number generator and then bam, that's the winner. So, excited for that. It's coming up, and then when we hit 1,000, we Andrew Lowen from Lowen Games, the creator of Deliverance, has offered and donated a copy of Deliverance for when we
Ooh,
hit 1,000 members that
nice.
we're going to give away, which is super cool. It's
Yeah.
hard to top that, so I don't know what giveaway we're
Yeah.
going to have after that one, but.
Number
We hit
one
the
game.
500 mark and gave away a copy of Wild Realms. And what's super dope is that Jack from New Kingdom Gaming has also donated one copy of New Kingdom Gardeners for each of the tiers. So all
Ooh,
three, yeah. So the person who won the 500, they won Wild Realms, was the game that they got from Daywalker Syndicate, and he also gave a copy of New Kingdom Gardeners. So it's a super sweet thing that's going on there. So get a part of the group, man. You're definitely going to want to
yeah.
do that because you have no chance of winning if you're not in the group.
Yeah, that's
If
right.
you're in the
That's
group,
right.
you have all the chance in the world. But yeah, so yeah, we also have the website at christianboardgamers.com. It's christianboardgamers.com and all that jazzerific jazz. So as always, we want to leave you with this, Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before others in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Until next time, we hope that we're feeling better. We hope that you're feeling better. But until that next time, God bless. Peace.
Peace.